Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you an OP Bardadin Build guide, which is a Bard Paladin in Baldur's Gate 3. So this is what I think to be the best multi-class in the game, and you can actually solo the game with this because it's got some really great crowd control and damage, which I'll be getting into for this build. So if you're leveling up, I would recommend going with the Bard until level 6 because that's when we're going to get our extra attack, which is a really big power spike. But if you're doing this from at level 12 or a later level, then we want to start with a Paladin because that's going to give us heavy armor. When we start as a Bard, we actually don't get heavy armor when we add in the Paladin, and having heavy armor is kind of a nice thing. So I would recommend starting with the Paladin because that just gives you much more freedom. But you can start with the Bard if you want to start with that level 6 extra attack. But for the purpose of this, we're going to go the Paladin here. We're going to take the Oath of Vengeance, which gives us the Inquisitor's Might, and it also gives us the Oath of Vengeance tenets. Now, for our ability scores, Charisma is going to be our main stat, so we want to be getting that up to 17. And for the rest of the stats, it's nice to have a balance between them, so having something like that for the increased initiative. Strength's going to be important too, but I would recommend having your Constitution up a little bit higher, so maybe something like that. And then we can alternatively go with an extra 2 points in some other stats. So like maybe take a strength up to 14, and then you can use an ability improvement score to take up charisma and constitution. So we'll go with that. The hegs here can be used on your charisma as well. If you're going to increase your charisma, I would recommend putting the rest of the points into wisdom like that. So we'll go with that for our ability score. Now, we're going to take the next level of Paladin. That's where we get ourselves the smites, which is a big component of this build, and I'll be getting into how we can smite 4 people per turn, which is pretty effective. So yeah, we get our divine smite there, reaction and critical reaction, so it gives us the extra radiant damage. As for our fighting style, I like defense for that +1 armor class. It's always going to be useful, especially early on. The increased armor class is huge. Dueling can be good if you're going to use a sword and a shield, which is, I would say, the best way of doing this because the increased armor class is going to help out. Great weapon fighting is good too if you want to go two-handed weapon, but I'm just going to go with defense because that increased armor class is pretty helpful. So as for our spells, I would highly recommend having command. This is an incredibly powerful spell, and I'll be getting into what we can do to make this even more effective. I also like to have the smites. You may not use them because they use a bonus action, but they're good to have there in case there's something that may be weak to thunder, lightning, or psychic damage. And Wrathful Smite can potentially frighten a target, so that's a nice addition as well. Now, for the final spell, if you have a cleric on your team, they should have Bless up, and if not, you can be the Blesser, but we're going to have our concentrations tied up with other spells, so I would recommend not going for things that are going to require concentration. Cure Wounds isn't really that great, but it can be an okay spell alternative, because all these other ones do require concentration, so we'll take that there. Command doesn't require concentration, making it actually a really great crowd control option. So now we're going to add in the Bard here. So the Bard itself is really strong, but in addition to the Paladin, it gets even more powerful. Now we get Vicious Mockery, an amazing cantrip. It's fun to be able to insult your enemies. If you're the face of the party, take friends because you'll get advantage on charisma checks and against a non-hostile creature. Now be wary if you're on higher difficulties. This can wear off and it'll alert them that you used it, so be mindful of that. Mage Hand can be a nice cantrip, but we're going to go Minor Illusion. This is great because you can lure enemies together to be able to attack them all together, or you can lure them out of a room to steal from it. So, as for our level 1 spells, I would recommend having Healing Word. This bonus action heal is awesome to have because it can pick up any downed allies that you may have, so it's up to 18 meters. Now, Dissonant Whispers can be okay. It's a 3d6 psychic damage, and it frightens a creature. They'll have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. Disadvantage on attack rolls is one of the best debuffs that you can put on someone in this game, so we'll take that. Long Strider can be nice, but you can also have someone at your camp apply this to everyone, so you don't even have to worry about that. I like Thunderwave because it's good to have a pushback in case that you may get stuck into a situation where you need to push enemies back. It's not great for its damage, but the pushback is the main focus of that. And Tasha's Hideous Laughter is a decent cantrip or decent spell early on to knock a creature prone, and it gives everyone else advantage on their attacks. As for the, we'll go with the Liar. It's really just your own personal choice. And then for our skills here, Deception and Performance are pretty good choices because this is going to help out in dialogue options. There's some other options that we could go with here. Stealth is never a bad idea either, but we're going to be wearing heavy armor. So if you're going the medium armor route, then you could take Stealth or Sleight of Hand. Acrobatics, we will be covered with athletics, so we're going to leave this as deception because it's nice to have that extra charisma boost. So at level 2, we get Jack of all trades, adds half our proficiency bonus to ability checks we're not proficient in, and Song of Rest for an extra bonus short rest, so that's always nice. As for the final spell, Speak with Animals isn't bad, but I would recommend having a potion of Speak with Animals because you can find that extremely common. As I said, Long Strider's a decent one, but you're going to be wanting to increase movement speed by 3, but you can use this at someone at your camp. So we'll go with Sleep, because we can cast this later on as a bonus action. Sleep early game is really great because you can shut down multiple enemies with it, especially the goblins, because you can usually shut down 3 of them with that. Now we're going to get level 2 spells here, and the best one we get here is Hold Person. So holds enemies still, they can't move, act, or react, and attacks within 3 meters are always critical. So we can apply Hold Person and go in and smite them to death. That's a pretty effective way to get your critical hits in. Now we're going to go with the College of Swords, because this gives us the Slashing Flourishes, which allows us to attack 2 enemies at once, and we can apply our Divine Smite to the Slashing Flourish. So we can attack 2 people with smites. Pretty good. It does use a spell slot and a Bardic Inspiration, but that's fine. We also get the mobile flourishes as well as the defensive flourish, which can increase armor class by 4. So that's really nice. Just increased armor class, always useful. Now, with our fighting style, if we're going with 2 weapons, we go 2-weapon fighting, obviously. I'm going to go dueling because this will add 2 damage, and we're going to use a shield in this, so you can carry a shield in your free hand and still gain this bonus. So we'll take that there because the extra 2 damage on your attacks is nice. Now, at level 4, Cantrip. Probably Mage Hand if you didn't take Friends already. As for a level 2 spell, a lot of people really like Cloud of Daggers. It's okay. I think for the purposes of this build, we're better off having our concentration on Hold Person. So I'm going to skip out on that one. Crown of Madness can be good. Detect Thoughts can be good whenever you're having dialogue options. That can be a good one. Heat Metal is a decent damage spell early on in the game, and giving disadvantage on attack rolls is quite massive, so Heat Metal probably will be the best one to go with. And for our feat here, you could go with the Actor if you didn't take the Hag's Hair, because this will increase our charisma and give you proficiency in Deception and Performance, which is awesome to have. I'm going to take the Ability Improvement, and we'll take our charisma up. We'll pretend that the Hag's Hair pushed our charisma up to 20, so that's going to be where we're at. At level 5, we get our improved Bardic Inspiration, taking it up to a 1d8 from a 1d6, and we regain all of our Bardic Inspiration on long or short rest, which is awesome, because we get an extra bonus short rest. Now, for our level 3 spells, Fear is a really good one, I'll be honest, but I really like Glyph of Warding, because you can apply this to the ground. You can make a Sleep Glyph, you can make a Lightning, a Cold Glyph, you name it. It doesn't require concentration, and you can only prepare one at a time, but it's more than enough. It's pretty nice just to have. Now, level 6, we get our Counter Charm, but we also get something even better. We get ourselves our extra attack, so we can now do our Slashing Flourish Smites on 4 people. Very nice. Also, we'll be taking Fear. This is actually an underrated spell. People don't really respect it as much as they should. So it applies Fear, which makes them so that they are useless. They have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. Again, disadvantage on attack rolls is huge. It's going to roll 2 dice and take the lower amount, so they're less likely to hit you. Also, they drop their weapons, so you can pick up their weapons. That makes them useless, so we'll take that. Now, at level 7 Bard, we get ourselves our level 4 spell slot, so for the spells here, I would recommend taking Confusion. This is an enchantment spell. We'll be able to cast this as a bonus action. This is basically Crowd Control Fireball. It hits in a huge area and it confuses targets, making them wander around, attack at random, and occasionally skip their turn. Now, I had someone comment saying that this is broken. They have a 1 in 10 chance of acting normal. So 9 times out of 10, they're actually just going to be doing something dumb. So yeah, they may actually act normally, but most times they will not. At level 8 here, we get ourselves another level 4 spell, but we get level 5 spells. And this is, I guess level 5 spell slots because we have the progression from the Paladin. For this level, it's tough. I think that Greater Invisibility is probably the best because we can also cast this as a bonus action. Turn a creature invisible, attacks against it have disadvantage, and attacks with advantage. Greater Invisibility is pretty good, and we can cast as a bonus action, making it very effective on this build. Now, for our feat at level 10 here, I would say Sharpshooter can be pretty good, so your ranged weapon attacks do not receive penalties from high ground. You have a -5 to attack rolls, but +10 damage. This is good if you want to maximize your overall damage. Now, the way that we're going to be going around this build is actually not a good thing to miss with your attacks, so I'm not going to take Sharpshooter, but just know if you want to maximize damage, that would be the way to go. Savage Attacker can be nice when making melee weapon attacks. You roll damage die twice. This doesn't apply to ranged attacks, unfortunately, so that's not the most optimal. Warcaster can be pretty good, though. Gain advantage on saving throws and maintain concentration on spells. If you don't have the Constitution Amulet, this is great for having that, and also gives you a reaction Shocking Grasp. There's a lot of really great options. Alert is also a nice one to go with. +5 to initiative, can't be surprised. That's pretty useful too. However, I'm just going to take the ability improvement, so you can go with one of those earlier options. And we're going to take up, ideally, we would have put in 2 points into like dexterity or something. We'll pretend the charisma's at 20, and we'll take our strength up or dexterity. Strength will give us higher attack. Dexterity will give us better initiative. So we'll go with dexterity because I'll go into why in a moment when we get over to gear options. But for our level 9 Bard spell, I would recommend taking Hold Monster. This is an incredibly powerful spell. Paralyze a creature, can't move, act, or react. Similar to Hold Person, but can be applied to anything that's not undead. And if it is undead, just use your Divine Smite. It'll have extra damage. So Hold Monster, massively effective spell that we definitely want to take. And at final level Bard 10 here, we get our Magical Secrets. And we also get our increased Bardic Inspiration to 1d10, so that's awesome. We also get to take some skills here, so I'd recommend going with probably either, Athletics, you have a +10 to Athletics for this being shoved, and Intimidation to take that up to +12. That's nice. For our cantrip, friends, I guess, spells. Now, Dominate Person or Planar Binding can be okay. One's enchantment, one's abjuration, so we'll go with Dominate Person because it's an enchantment spell, and we'll be able to cast as a bonus action. However, you're probably never going to want to cast that spell. You could even go with something like Dimension Door if you want a bit more mobility. But now that we get to our Magical Secrets, this is where everything comes together. So I would have taken Command if we didn't add in the Paladin, but I think that Spirit Guardians can be a pretty decent one if you don't hold concentration on your other crowd control spells. That's the only problem, is this does require concentration, so it may not be the best spell option for this build. So I'm actually going to put on Conjure Elemental because this is just really, really useful. Having an Elemental on your side to take hits for your team is massive. I can't understate how good that is. And for the second spell, this is where things are different. Hunger of Hadar is an amazing choice. Gives you the blinded and knocks them prone at the end of their turn, and they take damage, cold and acid damage. Counterspell is always a good one, but we don't really want to be burning up our spell slots we want to use for smites on that, so I'm not going to take that. But I think, personally, the Spiritual Weapon can be a good one too, going back in levels, but I'm going to take Cone of Cold, and here's my reasoning. So, if you have a Sorcerer or any magic user on your team, and you have a Cleric can do Create Water, and then your Sorcerer or Wizard can cast Chain Lightning, and it can deal upwards of 160 damage and cast itself to other targets. Now, Create Water will also double the damage of Cone of Cold, taking that 64 damage up to a potential of 128 damage. So that's really nice. Really, really nice. So I personally like this on my builds because then it helps contribute to if you have a water team set up. But also, you could go with something like Call Lightning if you need this will give you a concentration, but you can continually Call Lightning. Not the best. I would say probably Hunger of Hadar or Spirit Guardians, making this a very unique build. But even Spiritual Weapon can be good just for the extra aggro you can take. And even go back to Magic Missile. That's not a bad spell to have either. But I think Cone of Cold and Conjure Elemental being like the two best there. Just for the situationalness of the Cone of Cold, it can make an icy surface. So it can be pretty good. Now, for this build, I'm using the Helmet of Arcane Acuity here. So whenever you deal damage with a weapon attack, you gain Arcane Acuity, which increases your spell save DC. So that's the number that an enemy has to roll to resist something like your Hold Person. And this can stack really fast. If we're using hand crossbows, I would recommend hand crossbows for this build because it just allows you to get more attacks off. But the big thing is Arrow of Many Targets. Arrow of Many Targets can allow you to apply your Arcane Acuity extremely quickly. Do 2 attacks with that and you'll already have pretty much a +10 to your spell save DC. And then with the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, you can cast an enchantment or an illusion spell as a bonus action. So, enchantment spell, Command, Tash's Hideous Laughter, Hold Person, as we go a little further into our spells, we have a lot of spells here. Confusion, enchantment, Fear, illusion spell, hold monster, enchantment spell, and then greater invisibility, illusion spell. So we got our choice of fear, confusion, greater invisibility, hold monster, hold person, command, and Tasha's Hideous Laughter. And all of these can be cast as a bonus action with a really high spell save DC, making it extremely powerful. So these two items go together extremely well. You can get this in Act 3, don't miss it. As for our armor, Cloak of Protection, Evasive Shoes, Ring of Protection for the +1 to armor class. We have a nice crisp 27 armor class, which is awesome. I'm using the Armor Persistence, which is going to reduce all incoming damage by 2, and we get a free Blade Ward to half physical damage, and then Resistance to give us a 1d4 to saving throws. So we're going to be defensive as frick. We also have the Helldust Gloves here, which gives our weapon attacks additional 1 to 6 fire damage, and it gives us a spell attack roll +1 and spell save DC +1, so we're already getting extra spell save DC here, and also strength saving throws +1. And then here, the Amulet of Greater Health sets your Constitution to 23 and gives us advantage on Constitution saving throw checks. So we're going to have 138 health, but also we're going to be holding our concentration much longer. For weapons, I'm using the Infernal Rapier because this is going to scale off of Charisma instead of using our Strength for our attack rolls, which is huge, or Dexterity. So that gives us a nice option for damage. And this gives us the planar ally Cambion, which is awesome. And then Viconia's Walking Fortress here will give us the Rebuke of the Mighty Spell Guard, which gives you a gain advantage on saving throws against spells, and the spell attack rolls against you have disadvantage. And then we also have the Reflective Shell here, so it reflects any projectiles targeted at you back to the point of origin for 2 turns. That's awesome. Now, typically our go around would be to summon in our Cambion from that weapon there. You can alternatively, if you don't have the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, put on the Crypt Lord ring for the free Create Undead, so we can have a few summons just to help out with tankiness. So the Cambion itself has a rush attack here, can knock targets unbalanced, has the ability to charm enemies, Draining Kiss for damage, Rays of Fire, so it's got some decent damage options. On top of that, we also have ourselves the Elemental. Now, the reason I took the Cone of Cold too, I'm going to further expand on that, is we can take the Water Elemental. The Water Myrmidon works too, but the Water Elemental has a special interaction. So it has 114 health, which is pretty great for a level 5 spell slot, but its slam attack, slam into a foe and create a puddle of water around the impact site. So you can apply wet with this guy pretty quick and easy, and then it also has a few other attacks there which deal cold damage. So yeah, it's really nice to have these two here on our side just for extra defensive purposes. And then also if you have Us, we can conjure an Us for a third summon there. Just the overall tankiness of this is pretty great. Or if you have Find Familiar Scratch, that works as well. But yeah, our typical go about in doing things would be to get in close and use our Slashing Flourish. This is not very tidy, but our Slashing Flourish there can also use our Divine Smite as a reaction, and you can upcast it. At level 4 is the maximum damage you'll get from that, but what's cool about that is we can literally go in and use our Slashing Flourish. This isn't going to be the best representation of it, but you can apply your flourishes to your attacks there. So we also can apply, obviously, Luck of the Far Realms would be great, but yeah, Divine Smite from a flourish is extremely useful. Our typical attacks, though, would be to use your bow attack, so we'd want to just attack with our offhand crossbow, and we'd want to be using the arrow mini targets, which I think I ran out of at this point, but the arrow mini targets will spread our spell save DC up really high. Then we can cast ourselves. Hold person upcast can also apply to many targets. So we got 5 targets, yeah, 5 targets at level 6 spell slot. So every level up higher you go with hold person, it's able to hold 1 more person. If you have a large group, you can just apply confusion, because as you can see, that hits a huge area. So yeah, this can literally solo the game. If you didn't want to take any of your companions with you, you can literally just run a Bardadin. It's very, very powerful. So yeah, I think this is probably the best class in Baldur's Gate 3. So thank you so much for watching. If you found this video useful, please hit that subscribe button below, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.